Welcome to the Green Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Joyce Wheeler. Please show some love by visiting thegreenwomanstore.com for products provided by women for women. Today, my guest is Ariana Newcomer, and she specializes in healing the soul's voice to joyfully express its divine purpose. She's an intuitive healer, energy worker, and voice healer since 1984. Ariana is called the Voice Coach's Voice Coach because of the depth of her knowledge and understanding of the physical, psychological, and spiritual aspects of voice. After a voice injury ended her singing career, her quest to recover her own voice inspired her unique and powerful approach to healing the soul's voice. Ariana is a Dove Oracle Priestess, Harvard graduate, massage therapist, Soulcollage Facilitator, and former professional opera singer. She is an internationally published best-selling author and mom of two. Ariana's lifelong spiritual journey informs her work, along with her rich performing, technique teaching, and therapeutic background. She offers private mentoring, spiritual guidance, and energy healing, along with the Wise Woman Immersion group program. Ariana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
It's so good to have you here.
I am delighted to be here.
So what's your story? Tell us your story. How did you get involved with doing what you're doing outside of the fact that you had dealt with a voice issue that ended your singing career, which is sad?
Yes, yeah. Well, I'll tell you more about that. But it was actually, I just loved singing. I loved performing. I felt like it was my most direct connection to the divine. I felt like I was, bringing information from the divine through my voice. And singing was just my greatest joy in life outside of my kids. And then I lost my voice. Mm. So it's one of those things where, spirit has to whack you over the head with a 2x4 to get you to pay attention. So the truth was that I was using all of that joy that I got from singing, all of the applause, the validation to cover up the fact that the rest of my life was a mess. So when I lost my voice, it was so devastating. Not only because I loved to sing, but also because I thought it was my true purpose in life, to perform and to teach singing. So losing all of that, still can make me cry because it was so devastating. But I had to then look at my marriage. I had to look and see that my marriage was toxic, and I wasn't being appreciated. I wasn't being truly heard and understood. I wasn't being supported. So my voice in my marriage was just silenced and shushed, really. You wouldn't have known it. Not to say that we didn't argue, that I didn't argue, that I didn't fight, that I didn't try to have my voice be heard, but just the way our relationship worked. My husband was really devaluing of me, especially towards the end, and we were married for 15, 16 years, and we had 2 boys, and he would come home and my stomach would just tie up in knots, and he would say things like, I wish I had time to go to the gym, if I told him I had gone to the gym, so I would, feel ashamed of taking care of myself. And he would say things like, you don't pull your weight in this marriage. And this was in spite of being a mom, doing all the mom things and taking care of the boys and helping with homework and being the mom shuttle and doing the laundry and the cooking and the shopping and and working part-time.
What kind of work did he do?
As a massage therapist and a singing teacher.
He was a massage therapist and a singing teacher?
Yeah. Yeah. So the truth was that he didn't value those other things that I did And it's not just his fault, it's because our culture doesn't value those things.
Yeah.
As much as we say we value mothers and we value families, because what moms do in the home is not paid. There's no money attached to it.
Right.
There's always this perception that it has no value. So how many women out there have been either in a marriage where you weren't valued for all those things that you did in taking care of kids and home and elders and, volunteering and things like that, those things that didn't have a salary, a paycheck. And how many women have gone through a divorce and had to fight like hell to try and get what they really were owed out of what should have been a true partnership.
Right.
But because they may not have brought in as much money as the man and our culture tend to say, well, she doesn't deserve this.
It's not just the men, even like some women, because I was a stay-at-home mom, and I remember, talking with other women, and everybody would be telling what they did for a living. And when it came to me, and they were like, well, "What do you do?" I'd be like, "I'm a stay-at-home mom," and they'd be like, "Oh."
Right.
And it's
right.
like,
so,
really?
That has no value. Yeah.
To me, it did.
Yeah. Exactly. But that's a cultural story that we have, and I certainly was really affected by that story. So healing my voice, I was desperate to sing again, but what I really had to do was claim my voice overall and reclaim myself, because I had lost myself and I had lost the sense of value in who I was and being a mom, etc. So I really had to claim my speaking voice as the voice of my soul. I used to think my singing voice was the voice of my soul. So part of this healing process is going, you know what? My speaking voice is the voice of my soul. And I am determined to speak up and speak out. I am not going to be invisible. I am not going to settle for being devalued in this way. I'm going to claim my place in the world.
Good for you.
And so my healing process took me through a divorce. And one of the things that caused my injury was acid reflux from the toxic relationship. So healing that. And then there have been so many pieces to the healing, but it has been just this rich and powerful journey, and has led me into helping other women be able to claim their whole voice in the world again and reclaim their whole selves again. So that's the work that I do, is to helping other women become fully empowered and claim our power as women and claim our full place as full partners with men, so that it isn't that either of us is over the other.
Right.
It's that we're actually real partners. And a lot of men are afraid to give up their privileges from the patriarchy or the dominator system, as I work with that language, the dominator system versus the partnership system, which comes from Rian Eisler's work. But it truly benefits all of us, because the truth is that men have been damaged as much as women, just in different ways.
Right.
By that culture, by the men have to suppress their emotions. They're supposed to
Don't cry.
be manly.
Don't cry.
Can't be sensitive. You can't be, if you're in competition with a woman. And I just heard one of my family members say this the other day. I was just at a family reunion in Massachusetts, and he and his girlfriend were there, and they were playing a card game, and she won. And he said, "Thanks for emasculating me." And I went, oh, my God. Even in the 20-somethings, that's still there, that expectation that if you don't win over your girlfriend or your wife, then you are emasculated somehow. And it's just completely untrue.
But was he joking?
No.
No. Wow. The reason I ask is because my husband has a real good sense of humor, and that's something he would have said, but he would have said it in a joking way.
Well, even I know, but even saying it in a supposedly joking way is still bringing it up as a truth. That even if it comes out as a joke, quote unquote, if you just really think about it, how does that make you feel?
Right.
You know, how do you feel when he says that, instead of celebrating you for what you are able to do, for your talents and abilities and accomplishments?
Right. He's never said that to me, but if he did, I would laugh at it. I would think it was hilarious. But that's because we have a very good relationship. We are partners. You know,
Yeah.
It's an equal thing between the two of us. Nobody's over the other one. And we respect each other as far as where we are. So I'm blessed to be in the relationship that I am. Now, with my first husband, that was a little bit different. I have a question. When you talk about losing your voice, did you completely lose it to where you couldn't talk, or did you just lose your ability to sing?
I lost my ability to sing on pitch. I mean, I could still sing, but I couldn't stay on pitch. So I couldn't sing with other people, and I couldn't perform.
So we've been talking about partnerships. So let's talk about partnership with ourselves and with nature.
Yes. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about this idea of domination versus partnership. And again, this is Riane Eisler's work, and she's a prolific author, and I've had the great honor of being able to study with her personally somewhat. And her most famous book is probably The Chalice and the Blade, which came out in the 80s. And she lays out this idea of the dominator culture versus the partnership culture in that book. And she also has many other books that also talk about it. But she's a Holocaust survivor. She's in her 80s now. I think she's 87. She might be 88 now. And she and her family were Jews in Austria. So when she was a child, they got out of Austria on the last ship that Cuba accepted of Jewish refugees before they started turning them back around. And those who were on the ships that got turned back went to the concentration camps, and most of them died. So it's been a lifelong interest of hers. Why is it, when human beings are capable of so much good, that we are also capable of so much evil?
Because a lot of it is just people being greedy and people wanting to control and be on top.
And so for her, the idea of the patriarchy didn't explain everything. And so she came up with this kind of philosophy that there's a dominator culture, but we also have the ability to have partnership cultures as human beings. And we've had the dominator culture for thousands and thousands of years on the planet. But her book, The Chalice and the Blade, talks about ancient partnership cultures that existed, that the archaeological record shows existed, but they were written out of history because the victors write the history. Yeah.
Right.
So the ancient culture on Minos in Crete was a partnership culture. There's a place called Çatalhöyük in what is now Turkey that was a partnership culture. In ancient India, there were partnership cultures. In ancient Babylonia, there were partnership cultures where men and women both held power. They were matrilineal cultures in that names and possessions went down through the mother's line. They were goddess worshiping, so they were living in partnership with Earth and Mother Earth. They honored women. That process of being able to carry and birth a child was worshipped, as it really should be. It's miraculous, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so we're not doomed as humanity. That's the wonderful thing about recognizing that there were these ancient partnership cultures. We're not doomed to this dominator culture. So in a dominator culture, power is power over others. In a partnership culture, power is power with others. In a dominator culture, power is maintained through fear and violence. In a partnership culture, power is maintained through consent, through mutual consent. And in a partnership culture, we empower those that we have power with. And in a dominator culture, we disempower those we have power over. And so what I teach and what I work with my clients and in my group program, the Wise Woman Immersion, which we'll talk about later, we work with this concept of partnership, and we work to understand and see how the stories of our culture and the stories that we've told ourselves have kind of locked us into that dominator paradigm. And we learn to release those threads and come into partnership. And we have to begin with partnership with self, because that's the root of it all, yeah? Mm-hmm. So we release those judgmental voices that we have inside in a way of partnership. So many of the listeners may be familiar with doing inner child work or talking about inner parts, like recognizing that, oh, I have an inner critic, I have an inner perfectionist, I have an inner judge. And we're also used to negatively judging those parts and wanting to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of spiritual teaching talks about getting rid of ego. Mm-hmm. We have to get rid of our ego. Well, in my personal journey, my own healing work, I found what was most effective for me was loving and honoring those parts. Mm. And learning to treat them with that kind of love and respect, because truthfully, those inner parts have a positive purpose for us.
Right.
Our inner judge is trying to keep us from making some big mistake and getting embarrassed. Our inner critic is probably trying to keep us safe. Our inner perfectionist is trying to keep us from being negatively judged. So by creating that partnership within the self, we can do so much more healing in a way that really is longer lasting. Because if you just try and stuff the part down and say, well, no, I'm not going to listen to you, it's like trying to stuff down a beach ball. Right. You ever try to hold a beach ball underwater?
Yeah.
It's
fun trying. Yeah, but it's fun trying.
To try, but it's really impossible, and eventually it just squirts out from under your hands and most likely smacks you right in the face when you least expect it. So that's the thing with trying to stuff down our inner parts. So that's a really crucial piece of being in partnership with self, is learning to work with our inner parts in this loving partnership way.
Right. So when you were talking about partnerships and the way these other countries go, are you just talking a man and a wife, or are you talking basically the whole community working together and looking at everybody as a equal contributor to every aspect of that community?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So we start with partnership with self, and then it radiates outward from there. So once we come into a greater partnership with ourselves and we become much more loving with ourselves, we automatically become much more loving with others. And it makes it much easier to be in full partnership with our spouses, our partners, our family members. And some of the women in my Wise Woman Immersion, the first one that finished last spring, said that their intimate relationships improved without their really consciously doing anything else.
Nice.
So having that inner shift helps to create the ability to then be in true partnership with others. And then, of course, it radiates outward to be in partnership in our communities, and then in our countries, and then between our countries, between nations, and then partnership with nature, and then also partnership in our spirituality. And this is another place where the dominator culture has kind of changed the stories of a lot of the world's religions. Mm-hmm. And if we really honestly look, we have to recognize that our our religious texts and teachings have changed over time, and they've changed from the original.
Right.
So the Bible has been rewritten and changed many, many times, and the dogma of the church, the Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, the, whichever one, the particular teachings within that church have changed over time. And they've tended to reinforce the dominator culture.
Yes.
Instead of, if you look at the basic teachings of Jesus, that's partnership. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. That's being in partnership.
Right.
But we live in a culture, and the culture kind of imposes itself on top of the religion, and then we have lost out of those original teachings.
Right.
And
Go on. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that there are some people who say, and I am not a scholar of Islam, so I can't claim to really know this, but that the dominator culture, as Islam spread into cultures that were dominator cultures, it took on more of that domination aspect and more of the men dominating over women aspect, and that was probably not in the original teachings either.
Right. And one thing too that I believe that the Bible is very misunderstood, even in the current text that it is. I studied the Bible with some people looking at it from the Hebrew language, and that's really interesting and very different. But just the fact that everything has a vibrational frequency, everything is energy. I listened to a video where this man had talked about that possibly Jesus was a yogi during that missing time.
Right.
And that the reason he was able to walk on water was because he was able to match his vibrational frequency to that of the water. And then with the healing,
there are all kinds of interesting possibilities, and we have to remember the Bible wasn't written in one language.
Right.
So it was some of it Hebrew, some of it Aramaic, some of it Greek, some of it even another language. And every time it's translated, the translators have imposed their own particular slant on it. And that's what we do as human beings. So we recognize we can recognize that if we're willing to.
So let's talk more about energy.
Okay. What about it?
Well, the fact that we can use energy to heal.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely.
Do you do any energy work?
I do. I have been working with energy since my 20s when I began using my hands as a massage therapist and developing an ability to feel energy and work with the energy. And I have been still learning, and it's a lifelong learning process, being able to work with energy. There are lots of different ways that you can use to learn working with energy, and yet there will always be more to learn. So, there are forms like Reiki and various other things.
The singing bowls.
Craniosacral therapy is really very much an energy healing work, which I studied, and then beginning to work with spiritual energies and do distance healing work. And that is it's a real thing. And there are some ideas from quantum physics that can explain how it's possible. And one of the themes that my spirit guides have been bringing through me this year, I do a monthly full moon oracle message, and most of the messages this year have been about expanding our perceptions So we have what we've been taught are just 5 senses. And we also have the ability to bring in information in other ways. So clairvoyance, bringing in inner sight, seeing inner sight, clairsentience, which is receiving feelings, clairaudience, hearing words. We also have this ability all the time to feel energy. We've been trained out of it.
Right.
But we as human beings have an energy field, and I call them energy fields because I think there's not just one energy there, that extends out beyond our bodies, usually at least 3 feet in all directions. And there are people who have mapped the energy field or the energy fields, and there are absolutely ways that we can feel and sense energies coming to us through our energy fields and through these other awarenesses that I think if we want to really be whole human beings, we need to reopen ourselves to that.
I agree.
To our ability to feel, sense, and use energy, because we all do it anyway.
Right.
So everybody's been in the situation where somebody's really angry in the room and you feel it. You feel it. You can feel their anger and it doesn't feel good.
Nope.
Or if somebody's really, really joyful, you can feel their joy, even if they aren't saying anything.
Yeah. I know
right?
what you mean. Yeah.
So that's that ability to work with our energy fields and to sense things in that way. And then there's even another level of working with energy, and I think of receiving information from the higher guidance and from the spirit realms as also sensing energy in another way and being open to receiving it and being open to acknowledging that what you received is true, is real. But we've all been so trained out of using our intuition. For one thing, we've been taught it's not reliable, especially women's intuition, poo-poo. It's another aspect of the dominator culture.
Which is probably
shaming women.
Which is probably why I question my intuition or question things that I hear, and I try not to do that. I try to go because I hear my spirit guides telling me, you use your intuition, follow your intuition, and just edging me, encouraging me to do that. And I question it. I question, what if I'm doing, what if this isn't really what I'm supposed to be doing? And I even question them. Am I really hearing you or am I hearing myself?
Exactly. Right. That's that voice that the culture has taught us to have in our heads, or has kind of put into our heads. And we've taken it on as our own voice. It's just my imagination. This isn't real. So that's one of the things. And let's just acknowledge, too, that voice isn't likely to ever truly go away completely. So, again, let's treat that with love. That's an inner part that's trying to keep us safe and trying to have us not be called crazy or loony or, all those things that people call people who claim they have intuitive sense or they get information from spirit.
What I find
it's just to recognize that voice with the love, with the partnership, say thank you. I am going to listen to my intuition. I am going to listen to my guides. I am going to choose to bring through information, and I'm going to choose that this is real.
What interests me is that there are so many people out there who these gifts, I'm going to call them gifts, haven't been stifled to where they can really feel the energy or they can really connect with their spirit guides and, and see auras. So it's kind of like, and these people, I know one of personally, raised in the church, you're raised that this stuff is foo-foo. You know, if you're anything like that, if you're doing those kind of things, you're going to hell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of these people,
Mm-hmm.
they have these, you know, they're doing this as young children. And thankfully, she grew up and she realized that, you know what, I have this gift. I'm going to work with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she,
Mm-hmm.
you know, left mommy and daddy's beliefs behind as far as the church was concerned. So,
Mm-hmm.
so now because of that, she's going to hell too. So,
Well, then we can look at that again with love as part of the dominator culture. We want people to follow our dogma and follow our teachings so that we can dominate our followers rather than having each person have true agency.
all right.
And it's kind of like when the Protestant Reformation happened, one of the big pieces of that was that the Catholic Church's teachings were that you could only talk to God through a priest, which means you can only talk to God through a man. The nuns couldn't talk to God directly. Supposedly, they had to talk to, even though, you know, there are many, many writings of nuns who did exactly that. But that was part of the teaching, was that the ordinary person could not talk to God directly. They had to have an intermediary. And I don't think the Catholic Church is the only church that has that. That's part of the dominator structure. We want to control you. We want you to be within our control. We want you to talk to God the way we think you should talk to God. And the truth is we all have the capacity to talk with spirit,
Right.
God, whatever you want to call it, by ourselves, on our own. And that we all are going to have our own individual experience also.
Right. Well, that was even like with the Bible in the Catholic Church. I was raised Catholic. Even with the Bible, we were told, well, not me specifically, but people were told back in the day that they could not read the Bible for themselves because they would not understand it. That a priest was the one who was to read the Bible. And all that
Right.
time being in the Catholic Church all the time, I was never encouraged to open up a Bible. Never.
Wow. Yeah.
But you know what's strange though is I always thought there was something wrong. As a child, it was like, this just doesn't seem right to me. Having to go to confession, tell a mere man my sins, and then for him to, you know, tell me, well, this is what you have to do, and then to say, go in peace, you're forgiven. Who are you to forgive me? You're a man. You know, so
Right.
all this when I was a child was very confusing to me. It just didn't feel right. And I did land up leaving the Catholic Church. As a matter of fact, I'm the only one in my family that left the Catholic Church. As of now, I've left church altogether because I've realized what an institution it really is. And excuse me, how controlling it is. You know, you're a man and you're going to stand up there and you're going to tell me what the Bible says, you know, your interpretation of it, and you give me your revelation. Well, I'm glad you had a revelation, but it doesn't mean it's for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that could be for you.
And here's another piece. This is something that we do right at the beginning at the Wise Woman Immersion, is we work with sovereignty. Now, the word sovereign, some people aren't familiar with it, but sovereign is a ruler, and so sovereignty means having control. I don't know if the word control is correct, but having agency over ourselves, that we are sovereign. And some of my colleagues and my mentor are talking about this age of the guru is really over, and this tradition in India of the guru as the master, and you give yourself over to the guru, is again like this dominator culture. And that the only way to enlightenment is through the guru, and the guru is the only one who can do it for you. You can't do it yourself. So, but there's been so much abuse in that system. I have a friend who was sexually abused by her guru, and it was incredibly traumatic, and there's so many of these stories, just like in the Catholic Church, with children and nuns and boys, being abused by priests. And so we're all human. We're all human. And when we don't do our own work, when we think we have the way, in capital letters, when we think we are God's voice, in capital letters, and we can't be wrong, and we refuse to look within and to be honest and to face head on, face on, eye to eye with our own shadow, then we're going to become abusive if we're a spiritual leader. So that's one of the things that I strongly recommend everybody look for. If you're looking for a spiritual mentor or teacher, look for somebody who owns up to their mistakes, who says, you know what, I goofed, I got triggered, and I didn't handle that situation well, and I have some more work to do in that area. Or someone who is always reminding you to use your own discernment, to use your own inner sense, to know what's right for you. And that's in the context still of looking at shadow, because we are human beings, okay? Human beings have shadow, light and dark, like everything else in the world. And we have parts of ourselves that if we don't face them head on and treat them with this love that I talk about in partnership with self, then if we try and stuff them down like that beach ball, they're going to come up and smack us in the face and smack perhaps other people in the face. So it's really important for us to have that discernment and have that sense of sovereignty. And as we're bringing in information from spirit, this is also important. We can say yes or no.
Right.
This is actually a function of a healthy ego. So I don't advocate getting rid of ego. I advocate working with our inner parts such that ego becomes an ally, and we use healthy aspects of ego to hold our boundaries and to have our discernment about what is right and true and appropriate for us.
Right.
And as long as we're continuing to do our own inner healing work and continuing to be willing to look at and work with our shadow aspects, then we can continue to grow and continue to elevate our consciousness and to become better people, which is what we're really working for.
Right. So let's talk about intuitive healing. You are an intuitive healer, so how does that work?
Well, again, that's using the senses that we've been taught not to use. Right. So I have really trained myself to use so I call it intuitive healing because people are kind of familiar with that. But it's really much bigger than that. So what I'm doing in that context when I'm doing private mentoring with clients, for instance, is I am looking through my inner sight, my energetic sight, to see where in their energy systems there's something going on that is calling for my attention, calling for healing in some way. And then we use visualizations, we use information from guides, we use assistance from guides, their spirit guides and mine, to help create the healing. And it happens on this sort of alchemical level, or this deeper level of the subtle energies, which are tremendously powerful. And we've been taught just to discount them. Again, and just to say, oh, that's my imagination, or that's fake. So it's using all of those expanded perceptions that I've been training myself to use for years and years now, and especially in my Dove Oracle Priestess trainings in recent years, to just use it all, and then all that I have learned in all my years of doing healing work, hands-on healing work with people, and now distance healing work with people, to to bring through what is particularly needed by each person at that time, on that day, for them. So it's a matter of really tuning in, paying attention, being willing to receive whatever images come to me, whatever information comes to me, and use it instead of saying, oh no, that's just my imagination. And we get some really, really wonderful, profound, and deep healings that way.
So do you do anything to prepare yourself before you partake in an intuitive healing session?
I do grounding and centering, and I always do a grounding and centering for both myself and my client at the beginning of every session. So we get connected to Mother Earth, we get connected to Mother Cosmos, we connect our spirit guides, call in our allies and spirit guides and get them working together. And also I prepare by spending a little time before the session, just tuning in and seeing what information I receive ahead of time.
So as far as, I wanted to go back to the Dove Oracle Priestess. What exactly is a Dove Oracle Priestess?
I am specifically trained through Seven Sisters Mystery School. So that's Marguerite Rigoglioso is my spiritual mentor at this point. And she has a training, and she's actually, she does these ongoingly. I was in her first group of Dove Oracle Priestesses, and I am the level 3 Dove Oracle Priestess at this point, and I'm just going into level 4. So it's just a wonderful exploration. She is working with the ancient Greek traditions from Delphi and Dodona of the oracles, and so it's kind of bringing back the way of the oracle to the world now. And that's really an oracle, someone who brings in information from spirit, from subtle realms, not just from, spirit guides like angels, but also maybe from Mother Earth herself, from other beings on Mother Earth, from fairies and fae, from the trees, from, whales and other animals. So there are all kinds of ways that information can come to us.
So, and what about the oracle cards? Do you also use oracle cards?
I use my own deck of Soulcollage cards. I am a Soulcollage Facilitator, and Soulcollage is this wonderful process of creating our own cards. So we get these cards that are 5 by 8, and we find images that just really call to us. Either they call to us saying, oh, I love that, or oh, I hate that, or oh, I need that. And we use our intuition and imagination to collage them onto cards. And then the cards speak. We allow our imagination to bring us into the card and allow the card to speak, allow the card to have a voice. So it's a really, really rich process. And we use this in the Wise Woman Immersion also throughout the entire program. And the deck, as you make cards over time, they become your own oracle deck, as it were, with so much more meaning, because they're cards that you made yourself, right, and they're cards that you are giving voice. So it's this beautiful way to access our own inner wisdom, our own inner parts. We make cards for our inner judge, or an inner child part, or an inner perfectionist part. We make cards that are archetypal, perhaps for goddesses, gods. We make cards that are from our community, people that matter to us. We make cards for spirit animals, animal guides, or animal friends that we've had. And the readings that we do with our own cards after creating them are just extraordinary. In the immersion, when we start doing the card readings, everybody always says, oh my gosh, I never thought it would be this profound. They get really, really profound readings from our own cards.
So is that something, the Soulcollage Facilitator, is that an actual, So you would go somewhere and somebody would guide you through as how to do this, or is this something that
I am a trained Soulcollage facilitator, so I teach it in the Wise Woman Immersion, and Soulcollage is a process that has spread around the world. It was started here in California by Sina Frost, and there are now Soulcollage facilitators and people doing Soulcollage all over the world. So you might be able to find a Soulcollage workshop.
Yeah,
near you.
I would love that because it sounds really interesting. And when we talked previously, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, each day during the Wise Woman Immersion group, every day they create a card. Am I wrong?
Well, we meet 3 times a month. It's a 7-month program. And the first meeting that we have is Introduction to Soulcollage. So we do 2 sessions on that day. And then there's an invitation each week, each time we meet, to make a card. And I give an idea for a card. But one of the things with Soulcollage is that there's really no way to do it wrong. And it's for each of us. It's for you specifically. And so you might be interested, you might be called to make the card that I'm inviting you to make, or you might be called to make another one. And so the invitation is always to make the card that's calling to be made. So here's an idea for you this week. You can make this card or make the card that's calling to be made.
That sounds like so much fun. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And you said by the time the program is ended, they have a full deck of cards.
Right. By the end of the program, you have, hopefully, if you've done a card each week of the program, you have plenty to do readings with. Some participants really get into it and they make a lot of cards, and some don't quite make as many as they're prompted to, but everyone has enough to do readings with by the end of the program.
I love that. So seeing as how we started kind of talking about the Wise Woman Immersion group, do you want to go talk more about that as far as what somebody can expect from this program?
Sure. It's we have talked quite a lot about it. So we start with the Soulcollage, and that's a process that then continues throughout the program. Another piece that continues throughout the program is subtle activism. And I am passionate about creating change. I am a change agent. And subtle activism is this wonderful way for us to use energy, again, in a group setting to help create positive change that we need. So in each class, we create a group energy field, and we set protections and we set intentions, and we send out our group energy into particular places depending on what is calling for energy that day. And we send this out for the highest good and to help create the positive change and the elevation of consciousness that we need on the planet at this time. So we're doing our own deep healing work, and we're also doing healing for the planet. So those are the 2 things that pull threads that pull all the way through the whole program. We also work with voice. Since I have a specialty in working with voice, our first module is this opening to divine guidance, establishing your own connection, how to bring in only the guidance that you want, establish sovereignty, etc. And then we work on reclaiming your authentic voice. So learning how to understand that you've created a voice that sounds a certain way, and how to bust out of the habits that you've created that prevent you from fully expressing yourself. And then combining our physical, fully expressed human voice with our fully expressed divine self voice. And then we work with the partnership with self, aligning our inner parts, dancing with shadow, claiming the gifts of our wounds. Then we learn to do the soul collage card readings. Then we have a module on partnership with nature, and we actually learn some of the ways that plants communicate. And there's so much more to that than we've been taught.
I want to know about that.
Yeah. And then opening our own perception to be able to communicate with plants and trees. And then we work with the womb chakra and reclaiming our body wisdom. That's another thing we've been trained out of in our culture, and especially as women, being shamed about our bodies all the time. You know, we all look in the mirror and think, oh, I wish I had bigger breasts or smaller breasts. I wish I had curly hair. I wish I had short hair. I wish I had straight hair. I wish I had, I wish I was taller. I wish I was shorter. I wish I were thinner. I wish I were,
I wish.
I wish. So instead learning to really just tune in and get that connection with our body wisdom, because our bodies hold wisdom also. And then we activate our womb chakra.
Which is located where? Where is it located?
It's in the abdomen, and it's actually a chakra that has teachings about it have kind of been hidden away for a long time because it wasn't safe. But now, in the time of the rise of the divine feminine, these teachings are being brought back into the light. And there are a number of different cultures that have had sacred or holy womb chakra teachings. And so we do an activation and learn to start to open and use the womb chakra. And then at the end, we bring it all together and we say, okay, I've done all this stuff. And some of my participants have said, wow, this is really like putting all the puzzle pieces together. So if you're someone who's done a lot of personal growth work or spiritual growth work, but it still doesn't feel like it's completely all come together for you, this program is something that can help put those puzzle pieces together or weave that tapestry, weave those threads into the beautiful tapestry of what it is that you're going to do next. So many of the women doing the Wise Woman Immersion are at a place in their lives where they're looking for something, what's next. Mm-hmm. They might just have become an empty nester, or might have retired and found that the life that they created in retirement isn't the life they really want. So, okay, I've had this career. It's not serving me anymore. What am I going to do next? So that's joyfully expressing your soul's purpose. So weaving your life experience and your personal wisdom into the new tapestry of your next reinvention of yourself.
So the wound chakra, because I know all the chakras have a purpose. What is the purpose for the wound chakra, and how can you tell if it's being blocked?
If it's being blocked, did you say?
Right. Like sometimes they get clogged, blocked, however you want to term it. And we can experience various health issues. Yeah.
So to really understand, it would take more time than we have at this point.
Okay.
For me to talk about that, it's something that we spend, two whole classes on in the immersion. It's a really, but I'll just say it's our direct connection with Divine Mother.
Which is the earth.
Well, also, it's my firm belief, and I have been taught this also, that creation is female, that the creation itself is the mother. So we connect with Mother Earth, and we also connect with Mother Cosmos, the center of all creation out in the universe.
So this group program that you do, can people join online? Do they come to a facility? How does that work?
This is an online program. So I have had women from Germany, New Zealand, East Coast, West Coast, United States, middle of the U.S., Canada. So it's been an international group. And we meet on Zoom, so we can all see each other. And I keep it small because it's, to me, important to have that intimacy and for me to be able to know each of the students members in the program. And everyone gets private one-on-one mentoring with me each month as well. Everybody gets 30-minute private mentoring session with me. So this is not a big group program where you're going to get lost in the shuffle. This is a small group. You get one-on-one attention from me, so you're absolutely going to get what you need out of the program.
So how many women do you accept into the program?
It's a maximum of 12.
Okay. And is there age limit?
Nope.
So
Nope.
Anybody who wanted to join 20-something to 70, whatever, age isn't a factor at all?
It isn't. Although the women who've been drawn to it so far have been women in their 40s to women in their 70s.
Okay. And when is this program going to start?
It starts in mid-September.
Do you have a date yet?
Yeah, with our introduction to Soulcollage Day is September 22nd.
Okay.
And then class meetings will be on Wednesdays from 10 to 12 Pacific time.
And can people go and start signing up right now?
People need to have a conversation with me because it's a small group. I want to have that conversation, make sure that we're really a good fit and that the resonance feels right. So you can go to wisewomanelder.earth/immersion. That's the information page about the program, and there is a link on the page. You click on that, you fill out a short questionnaire, just a few questions, so I know you're serious. And then you get a link to my online calendar to schedule a conversation with me. And we'll talk about it.
And does that conversation take place on Zoom?
Yeah, that can be Zoom or phone.
Okay.
If somebody's not yet familiar with Zoom, we can do the telephone.
So let's talk about some of the other things that you offer. You offer one-on-one private mentoring?
Yes. Yes. So a private mentoring program can be working on your particular, whatever issues are up for you, doing that intuitive healing that I talked about, bringing through information from spirit for you. And also people do work with me specifically on voice. So there's, I am working with someone right now who has been an airline pilot, and she's thinking about running for political office when she retires. So she wants to work on her voice.
Nice.
So there are voice programs available. There are spiritual mentoring programs available. And they run, various lengths of time depending on what is going on for you.
Right. So if somebody wants to sign up to work with you, where would they go?
Well, they can go to my main website, which is ariananewcomer.com. And there's a link there to click and schedule a conversation with me about working together in general. It says, let's talk, and you click on that, and it takes you to my online calendar.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to share with the listening audience before we wrap it up?
Yes. It is time for us as women to be claiming our voices, claiming our wisdom, and claiming our place in the councils, in the councils of power, in the halls of power, in the boardrooms, in the congresses and the committees and the school boards and et cetera. It is time. Our voices are urgently, urgently needed in these times, and we tend, as women, to be much better connected to the way of partnership in general than men. And so our tendency to collaborate and work together is urgently needed at this time, as we are the way showers. We are the ones who will show the way forward in these times. So I encourage everyone to step up, claim your wisdom, claim your voice, start speaking up and speaking out, and we can create the change we need.
Excellent. I love that. Maybe one more thing before we go. You're a best-selling author. Do you want to talk about those books at all real quick?
Not really. Those were kind of from a different time in my life.
Okay.
So
I didn't know if they had anything to do with what you're doing now, but apparently not. So that's okay. Yeah. I was just going to give you time to go ahead and do that if that's what you wanted to do. Okay. Yeah, Ariana, thank you so much for being on. It was wonderful.
So much for having me, Joyce.
It's just so wonderful to hear you speak about, the voice and how important it is. And I just really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with our listeners.
Well, you are very welcome, and I am always delighted to talk about it. I love talking about this stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you too. You've been listening to I'm going Wise Woman. I'm stuck.
You have. I've been listening to Wise Women here.
Yes. You have been listening to Wise Women, but this is the Green Woman podcast that you've been listening to. Today is August 8th, 2018, and my guest has been Ariana Newcomer. Enjoy the rest of your day.